Hey, young people, good day. Welcome. It's week 13, and today is Friday, November the 20th. Wow, 2020. Hospitality 3050 is the class, and my name is Randy, as you all, Randy Hagenar, you know me. So today, what I want to do in this video is something more to talk about parts of chapter 12, new at chapter 12. Very good chapter. Casavana is just a fantastic business person and learned so much from him from my days at MSU, but also going to some programs to him that we did as a business, going to some seminars on pricing, which we're going to talk about today, and just reading many of his different types of things and correspondence that he has given to us over this year. So we're going to talk about chapter 12. We'll talk about Oracle, and then I've also administered a quiz, I believe, yesterday, which would have been shoot, 2 days ago, maybe Wednesday. No, it was Thursday. It was Thursday. That is quiz 7. So hopefully you got that. And anyways, talking about Oracle, just some quick thoughts. The expectation once again is 15 modules. 15 modules, all worth 20 points. So that's worth a value of 300 points. 300 points based on a part of 1,000 points. That's 30% of your grade. So we need to continue to work with that. Some of you have sent me snapshot pictures of your completed modules. That's a very good way of doing it. And what I will do is I will count those modules and I will record. I will send you emails too as to what I have in terms of points too. So I just want to encourage you to continue to do that. That's so important because as we wrap up, we're wrapping up and we got a lot of things to get to, and it's getting to be towards the end of the school year. So back in chapter 12, we talked about the functions of management, planning, organizing, and the last one was evaluating, is what Casavana has listed. We expanded some more upon that in our business, but it's fine. We're going to continue with the textbook. And he talks about evaluating, and one of the things he spins off and this part of the chapter, he starts talking about pricing. I've been blessed over the years to be involved with pricing of menus. I want to talk about that for a moment. And working for the Bavarian family, the Frankenmuth family, and we have so many meetings with vendors that we'd share different thoughts, and they've done some of the same things in terms of menu pricing. Years ago, when the family started back in the 60s, in which they really saw some significant growth, I've asked Tiny Zender, Dorothy who's still living, and even Eddie Zender, who's a pitcher in our class. We've had programs together, and I says, how did you menu price? And years ago, what they would do is they would take a look at their cost of their food items and probably do it times 3. Dorothy would say that they'd probably do that, and that would generate basically a 33% cost of goods. Okay, just basic. For example, if your food items cost you $3, you've got a chicken plate, chicken portioned out, the mashed potatoes, the dressing, if that's included, maybe a garnish, the price point to wash the plate, the vegetables may be included with the dinner, and also, the appetizer, which would probably be a chicken noodle soup. And then also the 4 salads, maybe a coleslaw, cranberries, cottage cheese, chicken salad, bean salad, whatever the rotational salads would be. There'd be different price points. And so that total thing would be $3. What the family would do is they would do it times 3 to generate a 33% food cost, and probably maybe not charge $9, but strategically, psychologically, they probably would charge $8.99 for that item back in the 60s and the 70s. Then I got involved in business in the 80s, and we continued that. And probably in the mid 80s to late 80s, we attended a program by, once again, the author of our textbook, Michael Casavana. And he talked about updated menu items and updated menu pricing. And basically what he added to that previous thought is to incorporate labor into the price point. So how much labor does it take to make these meals? And in our departments, in our world in Frankenmuth, you would have different departments that might add value. The bakery would make the breads. Okay, what's the price point of that? But also, what's the labor to make that bread? That should be included. And the meat department makes the chicken. What's the price point to make that chicken and to include that labor? And the same thing is to the individuals preparing the food. Maybe it might be the line cook who's actually preparing the item. It takes him 5 minutes. His labor, his or her labor, should be included in that. If the prep cook is making the mashed potatoes, the dressing, those types of things, the volume type foods that are included with that dinner, what is their labor to make it? And maybe it's not a lot of labor, but you should also include it. Another thing we learned back then is, if you're going to have table linens, your napkins, your salt and peppers, what does it cost to wash those different types of things or supply those different types of things per unit? And then what also does it cost, to wash your silverware, have a cost value for the chair you might be sitting in, all those different things. So what it is, it became more and more accurate as to what does it actually cost for food and labor and materials to feed that guest. And then we developed on basically it was on an Excel spreadsheet back then, but you would have all your different price points for these ticket items. Then you take your price points or your selling price points that you feel good about, and that was more emotional, and minus that value and come up with a contribution margin. And so we try to have a contribution margin on all of our menus of X amount of dollars. More strategic and more up to date, more modern. So what we did with that when we got in the hotel business is we sort of copy and pasted that idea, if you want to call it that. And then we went to some programs. I wasn't involved in that, but I know that the lodge management, I joined the lodge management team in 2003. The hotel was built in 1986, but when they started pricing out the rooms, they sort of did the basic thing of maybe 3 times up or 4 times up, probably 5 times up for a hotel, 5 times markup to try to have a 20% cost. And then we got to a program with Casavana, which he put on for the hotel business. He put on programs for restaurants and hotels on pricing. He's a resource. And so, and as part of this, pricing is what he has included in Chapter 12, and that's called the market condition. And that's nothing more than a common sense strategy, and that's probably the philosophy we use today in our world in Frankenmuth as to how we price point our rooms. And what does that mean? So it's market condition, it's common sense strategy. You're trying to take your property and maybe compare it to other properties in the particular area, comparable hotels. And you try to have competitive type items and you take a look at the amenities that different properties may have to offer. So amenities such as pools, water slides, golf course, indoor golf course, which we think is a unique thing to have in our property, and retail stores, which many properties have, hotels, restaurants, exercise rooms, gaming area. I don't know of too many hotels that have gaming areas in which you can play vending machines. And then you collect and you accumulate points. And then you can go and take this card of accumulated points in which you've earned these points. And then you take it to our redemption area and then you can obtain gifts. Trust me, ladies and gentlemen, these guests of ours go gaga over that. And they really miss that now during the pandemic, but that's what we do in our property. And Zenders has sort of copied us. But anyways, so that's a market sense approach, market condition. And in addition to that, Casavana talks about is that you try to utilize blind calls. Okay, what's a blind call? Blind call is you don't identify yourself and you talk to different properties and you pretend to be a guest or a customer and you try to figure out as to what all the amenities they have and you get their price points. Well, there's all kinds of ways you can get that in this day and age. Um, and one thing we have done in terms of things that we're trying to learn from is that we also do a square foot analysis. And maybe that is just to compare. That's been invaluable. That was one of our ideas of one of our revenue managers of Kim's probably a few years ago, in which he says, I really like to see as to what our square footage is for our standard rooms and compare them to some of the chains in Frankfurt, the Marriotts, the Drurys. So what we did is we pretend to be a guest, we pay the room, and we go in there and measure the actual room and we compare their square footage to our square footage. What did we learn from that is that, well, our guests thought that maybe our rooms were a bit small. And what do you do with that? Well, perception wise, you got to try to change it and maybe try to have your furniture, whatever you can do to make the room appear to be more comfortable and more fulfilling. So that's what you want to do, okay? So and that's what we did with the square footage analysis, and that was a good activity. So we always got to try to make those rooms, as you would say, it's really got to be a wow situation. And how perception wise can you make your room be as comfortable, but also as big as it possibly can be. And there's strategies involved with that. We also evaluate beds and the furniture. If we are maybe a higher priced market, and you take a look at our price points of our rooms and you compare them to a Marriott, Spring Hill Suite, Fairfield, or you compare them to a Drury where they don't have as many amenities, so um, our price point is going to be higher. So the thought process here is that our beds have got to be pretty comfortable. And when we do beds and when we make bed selections, I mean, our executive housekeeper usually leads that charge. They'll have different types of beds, and we'll take our turns laying on them, try to give them feedback, and try to make sure that the beds are comfortable. Probably not the most expensive beds, but they're going to probably be a little bit higher price than an average price. It's important to our guests. So that is also included in the price point to an extent in which we'd like to think that that amenity is a comfortable type of thing. Another thing we do in terms of trying to be market based is to see as to how much of our market share do we get. Now, Casavanas talks about that. You got to know who your competition is, and you do that with the amenities. But we've taken his thoughts, and what we've done is try to figure out what our occupancy is. We know what our occupancy is, but we want to know what Splash Village is doing. We also want to know what Marriott is doing, the Spring Hill Suites, also the Fairfield Hotel. We also want to know what the Drury is doing. We also know what the Holiday Inn is doing. And so what we do is that's where we talk about these car counts, in which we'll do car counts on a daily basis, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the a.m., and we try to project what their occupancy is, and we put it on a spreadsheet, and we try to figure out as to how do we fit in a comparison to them. And when we take a look at that type of activity and take a look at our occupancy and compare it to what our occupancy goals are, it gives us confidence and gives us a feeling as to that, maybe with pricing we can maybe be a little bit more aggressive for this calendar year for coming off a good year, and we can price point maybe things a little bit higher. He also talks about threshold pricing, and that's nothing more than you do not want to have a threshold to your common guest that feels that, oh, this is getting to be too expensive. We do get comments from our guests saying that things are expensive, but when is the comments coming? I remember taking some comments from a guest that we had that our price point was too expensive, and this was during our car show weekend, which is usually in September. And we have more amenities than probably most of the other properties in Frankenmuth, and so they're going to have to pay for that. Our rooms are, I think, very unique. I think it's a clean property. Other properties are clean though too, and we've got more things to offer in terms of the lounge and restaurants than other properties. So the guest has to pay for that. If a guest is really adamant about it, what I would say is I try to help them in saying that, well, maybe you don't want all the amenities that we offer. And as a result, you might have to go to some place that does not have as many amenities. And I would probably suggest maybe like a Franklin Motel. If you are a senior citizen and all you want to do is just sleep and participate in the car show weekend, which is everything away from the motel, you might have to do that. And yes, with less amenities, you can have a lower price point. And so anyway. And looking at the market condition approach, probably our biggest thing that we're concerned about, our statistic, we'll talk about this probably another video, is occupancy. And that is the thing that drives our decision making, is what is our occupancy, whether it's year to date, whether it's monthly, and compare it to our goals. And when we compare it to our goals, we stretch our goals. We do apply that acronym SMART: specific, measurable, accepted, realistic, and time. But we do stretch it. And if we can hit that goal, it gives us also more confidence for pricing more aggressively and confidently in the futures. Casavana has some really, really good pictures in this area. Questions to ask as an operator. And that's on page 426. And I'm just going to turn on a light here to give myself a little more light. Hopefully it does not influence background too much. I don't think so. But just 4 questions. How do our hotel room rates compare to those of our competition? You got to keep that in mind. Are our room rates lower? And sorry about that. Are our room rates lower or higher than that of our competition? How are our rates affecting our revenue and market share? We talk about that all the time. If our rates should be a little bit less expensive, would that help? accomplish more market share, more rooms. What is our current occupancy percentage? Q. Very important. Key thought. What is our occupancy percentage of the competitive set? Will our total revenue improve if we increase or decrease our rates? And have any industry trends emerged during the past 6 months? But those are all very good things. Once again, this is such a valuable resource if you're in the hospitality industry, and it's just got some great business principles to help you in all the different avenues of business you can have. Market-based approach. We use common sense approach. So let's talk about one other thought before we depart today, and that is the rule of thumb. The rule of thumb approach is nothing more than it's like a dollar for every construction dollar for a dollar for every $1,000. It's nothing more than a ratio. So what Casavana says in that example is that based on like a 70% occupancy, you want to have probably close to 70% occupancy you're projecting, that for every dollar of construction you have, you would put, for every $1,000, you would put a dollar towards a guest room. The example he says is that it costs whatever, X amount of dollars, and it costs $80,000 cost per new guest room. Based upon that ratio of 1,000, it would be $80 per guest room. And then you take your markets, whether it's standard room rate, and then you maybe have a suite, you have a king size room, all those different types of market rooms, and then you base those individually. Those are very basic, but it's probably better to do some type of price pointing, whether it's common sense or rule of thumb, as opposed to doing nothing at all. And that reminds me, the rule of thumb just reminds me of the way that we used to do things back in the 60s. Nothing more than saying this, what is our actual cost? And then times it times 3 to try to generate a 33% food cost. There's pluses and minuses for both things. But I definitely like the market-based approach. I think it gives you a better feel. And I like to compare our amenities to other amenities and see exactly as to where we stand as a business. And then compare that to our occupancy and to our goals. And that gives you a feel as to how you're doing as a business person. So, okay, well, that's it for today. Those two different types of ideas on price points of the hotels, and I gave you a little bit of history as to what we price pointed for restaurants at Bavarian Inn. And I just like to conclude for today saying that please continue with your Oracle materials. And I know I've seen a couple of you come through, and they've been telling me that and doing the snapshots of the pictures and sending me that. That's a great way of doing it, and I will continue to monitor that. Continue your quizzes. Try to catch up on the quizzes. I want you to get your points, but I need to see things answered and emailed to me back, okay? That's what I need to do. That's my basis for measurement. And as we build, we're getting closer to the final. The final will be projected. It's going to be online, and I'm going to work with Gina Kronk, who is our Blackboard specialist, and she helped me last semester too, in terms of which we had the final online for my other class that I taught. So it'll be, well, I think it's December 8th or 7th, the Tuesday at we'll talk more about that in other videos and emails as we get closer, but I will keep you up to date with that. And you'll probably have it's probably just going to be 50 questions and probably I'll allocate up to an hour for you, which will give you more than enough time, but it'll take you probably 30 minutes or so. And I also am going to start sending out personal emails to each and every one of you so that you can see exactly as to where you stand with your points. And I'm going to try to encourage you to complete your activities so you can get that good grade that you've worked for. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. And that's going to conclude today's video. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me, whether it's email or a phone call, and I will get back to you. Thank you. Enjoy your day. Be safe, and we'll be talking to you next week, probably Monday or Tuesday. Thank you. Bye-bye.